Hello, everybody. Welcome to Press Box. John Carter. I'm here with the boys' tennis team, Coach Dave Clutts, Troy Distarath, Chad Mabin, Eli Pino, and John Mason. Guys, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
And Coach, kind of a regular occurrence, but another great year for St. Clair tennis.
It was a big year for us. This was our 20th straight year that the boys' team qualified for the state final, so it was pretty big.
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about the regular season. What league you play in and how'd you do?
Well, we play in the MAC Red division, which we're the smallest school. We're the only Class B school in that division, and it's the toughest. So we play Grosse Pointe North, Grosse Pointe South, Port Huron Northern, and Utica Eisenhower. We ended up fourth, but for us, you know, anytime you finish, we don't play in the Red division to win it. We play it to get us prepared for later in the season.
So those teams typically have very, very good players. They're larger than you. Does that kind of give your team that kind of edge you need to go on?
Yeah, absolutely. The Red division is really all about the teams that go to the state finals. And so that's why we're in that division, because we all go and we just help each other get better.
So tell us a little bit about the strengths of your team this season. What did you guys do well?
You know what? We had a really strong singles lineup. I'd put our singles lineup against any school in the state. And not to diminish what our doubles did, they haven't had the experience that our singles players did. So that was really kind of the strength of our lineup.
So you mentioned the streak. So what happened in regionals and in leading up to the states?
You know, in regionals this year, we had a little surprise. The state kind of changed up who's in our regional, and they threw Pontiac Notre Dame Prep at us. And so we've only seen them in our regional once before, and we were a little nervous. But we ended up winning our regional, and I think that was 5 in a row. Wasn't that, guys? Yeah, 5 regionals in a row.
Excellent. And again, that sets you up for states. We'll talk about states in a little bit, but I was curious. I mean, you're a veteran coach, certainly. You mentioned all the years. I mean, how have you changed your approach over those years in coaching?
You know, it really depends on the team. You have to know what you have coming in. And if you have, you know, an inexperienced team or you've graduated a lot, that changes your approach. This year we knew we had our strength in singles. And so Dan Johnson, our assistant, he and I really kind of focused a lot on developing our doubles, getting them ready to go for the state finals.
And how has the game changed? Is there something that's kind of different that you can see from the game 20 years ago versus the way it's played now in high school?
You know, it's a little more aggressive. The technology of the rackets and the strings allow kids to hit bigger balls, and so that's probably the part of the game that's changed the most. Kids can hit as hard as anybody.
So you coach both the boys and girls teams, and I'm always curious, from your perspective, you know, what are the differences between coaching both those teams?
With the boys, it's kind of neat in one sense because they get there early and they want to stay late. And I mean, they want more and more. And
gym rats and court rats.
Yeah, exactly. And with the girls, you've got to take care of business in the 2 hours you schedule, because as soon as practice is over, they're moving on to the next thing. So, but it's very different. It's fun both. I love them both. It's a little different. You can be a little harder on the boys than you can on the girls at times too.
Yeah, I noticed you can usually yell at a boy individually, but you got to yell at the girls' team.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know, always curious, how did you actually start? I mean, I know the kind of the succession between Stablin to you, but how did you get interested in coaching?
You know what? When I was a freshman at Michigan State, I tried walking on the team and did not make it. And I had a buddy that played for Michigan State who was approached by Okemos High School, and they wanted him to be an assistant coach there, and he recommended me. And so I went and interviewed for it, and Okemos has always been a state powerhouse. And I started coaching as a freshman in college, just kids that were a year younger than me, and loved it, and did that all 4 years, and it kind of never left me.
And how do you, I mean, again, veteran coach, how do you continue to be motivated to do that? I mean, obviously, it's not just the even season and the practices. There's a lot of other stuff involved.
There is, and it's funny when I'm getting ready to start a season, it's just, oh my gosh, another year. But you know, as soon as it starts, you love it, and it's a lot of fun. And getting some new courts keeps it kind of exciting. Exactly.
Well, let's talk to some of the players, and guys, thanks again for coming in. Let's start with you, Eli. How did you get started playing? I know your family has played tennis, but is that what got you started into the game?
Yeah, my brother started playing first, and I kind of took after him and just kept playing.
So I always wanted to ask you, what's the ranking in the Pino family? Where do you fit in? You guys have like seeds and stuff as you go through?
Yeah, Seth would be at the top, of course, and I follow him for second.
Still, you beating your sister then? And,
oh yeah.
So, Troy, you were number 3 singles. What about you? How'd you get started in tennis?
Well, my younger brother actually started playing before I did, and so I got into it by watching him play tournaments, and I didn't even start until 8th grade. Coach Clutts got me out, and we started hitting the summer going into 9th grade, and I was able to make the varsity team shortly after that.
How about you, John? How'd you get started?
I took the City Rec program, and I liked it a lot, and a lot of family friends told me, go to the tennis house. I started getting the lessons and tournaments and just kept playing more and more.
Okay. And Chad, you were basketball players, but you kind of graduated now in the first doubles team. How'd you get started?
Just one time during the summer, Mom dragged me and my brother out to play for the Rec, and then we ended up going to the tennis house that winter and getting lessons going.
I've always wondered, now, you played, a couple of you guys play, I know, team sports versus individuals. What's the difference in your mind between playing like a team sport like basketball versus being on the court in tennis?
You gotta focus a lot more on yourself. You don't have the entire team there to pick you up. You only have you. Or I'm lucky because I have a partner to keep me going. If one of us gets down, we always have each other to get us back.
Eli, you went from, and you mentioned your brother, but I think you went from going in second singles last year, right, up to the first singles this year as a sophomore, which is really excellent. What's the biggest change that you saw in terms of the competition you faced?
Well, everyone else was a lot better and knew how to handle it because they were all seniors and older. So I was the new person going in, trying to hang with them.
Are they bigger hitters, more experienced? What do you see at that level?
Oh, they're definitely more experienced, and some of them hit bigger, and they're all different hitters too.
So what are the strengths of your game? What do you like to do best?
I like to hang back at the baseline and just keep the rally going, trying to get aggressive when I can.
Okay. And John, what about you? What are some of the strengths of your game?
I like to hit big serves.
The shorter
Yeah.
guys always like the big serve.
Well, my technique's pretty good, and just big, deep forehands, a lot of pace, and a lot of top spin on my forehands.
Do you have a
The
rival
baseline.
you're particularly concerned about here locally?
Nah, but I do want revenge on Country Day.
So talk about that. What do you mean?
Well, I beat the Country Day 2 singles in a tournament last February, and I lost to him in the state semis.
Okay.
So I want to beat him next year.
And what happened in that game? What was the difference, do you think?
Well, he played a lot smarter than I did with his shot placement. I struggled because I could only hit one-handed slice backhands because I hurt my left wrist.
Okay.
And combination of that, and I thought it could have been maybe a little more resilient in my mental toughness, so I got another shot next year.
Absolutely. And Chad, you mentioned doubles. Big, tall guy. I would think you'd be pretty tough in the net, right?
Yeah, that's where I play my best game,
Yeah. Swooping down on the balls coming across the middle.
basically.
So let's talk a little bit about this, kind of what you've learned over tennis. And Troy, you're the senior here in the group. You mentioned you really only got started playing in kind of like 8th grade.
Yeah.
What's the difference for you between when you kind of started in high school as a freshman versus where you are now?
Well, I came from sports like basketball, football, and baseball that are really team oriented, and I call them rah-rah sports because it's a lot about yelling and passion. But in tennis, you have to show your passion in an entirely different way. You have to be very you have to hold it in. You don't want people to know if you're up or down, and that's really tough. So my biggest growth over high school was learning how to control my emotions as best as I could, positive or negative.
What about you, Eli? Now you went from playing number 2 again as a freshman to now as a sophomore. What have you learned in that year as you progressed?
I learned, just like Troy said, just about mental toughness and trying to stay calm without showing anyone any weaknesses.
Okay. John, I'm always curious. People think of tennis as kind of a country club sport. What's one of the tough things about tennis that a lot of people don't understand?
I think toughness is when you're on the court there, you're by yourself, and it's all you. I guess
No one else to depend on.
yeah, no one else depending. You gotta be mentally tough and resilient. There's a ton of points in tennis, so when something happens, you gotta move on to the next point.
Yeah. Chad, as a doubles player, what do you look for from your partner? What do you expect him to do?
I expect that he can set the next point up so I can get if I'm at the net, I expect him to set me up to be able to put the ball away, and he expects the same for me.
And how well do you get along? You guys ever fight?
I'm the rowdy one on the team.
Okay.
So
So you kind of liven it up a bit?
yeah.
So, Troy, from a perspective of being a student, how has playing tennis here in high school helped you be a better student, do you think?
Well, tennis and golf are probably the two sports that travel the most in high school sports, and so time management has been a big thing. I mean, we were gone 5 nights over the course of the season, so learning how to manage your time, getting all your homework done. Like during the week of state finals, we were gone Thursday, half the day, all of Friday, all of Saturday. Saturday night was the homecoming dance, and then I had a calc test on Monday. So just managing your time is a big deal.
John, what about you? What have you learned from playing tennis?
As from the academic standpoint, or
Yeah.
from an academic standpoint, definitely managing the time, like Troy said, because there's a lot of overnight trips and a lot of traveling, a lot less time at home to do your homework.
Okay. And Eli, one of the things I'm always curious in is what do you want to work on? So you've gone from like a freshman to a sophomore. You got next year coming up, and I know you guys play a lot during the winter and so on, preparation. What are you working on? What do you want to get better for next year?
I just want to get better overall, improve like every aspect of my game, especially at the net.
Okay, you mentioned you stay back. So what are you looking to do with the net? What do you want to be able to
I want to be
accomplish?
able to run and like put the ball away within
Okay.
like 2 or 3 shots.
What about you, Chad? What are you looking to do this over this winter?
I'm looking to become a much more consistent player. Work on just the fundamentals, get my ground strokes, my volleys down better, so I can put the ball away.
Now, are you thinking of trying to work into one of the singles positions, or do you want to stay a doubles player?
I haven't really made my decision yet about
Okay.
that, so we'll see when the time comes, I guess.
And Coach, certainly that's part of the player's decision, but it's also part of the coach's decision, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, we have to look at how to make the strongest lineup. And so you may be a player that could play in the singles lineup, but we may have to put you in doubles just to give our team balance.
Yeah, no, I get it. John, always curious, do you have a favorite pro that you've kind of modeled your game after?
Oh, I like Federer because he's considered the greatest of all time, and he's just
That's a pretty good start.
Yeah, he moves around the court so gracefully. I like Nick Kyrgios a lot, even though he's not, I guess, your role model type person. He's entertaining and pretty aggressive.
So don't hit any balls at line judges or anything
Yeah.
like that.
That's Nick Kyrgios type stuff. Gets the crowd going.
Yeah. So, I mean, Troy, you're leaving the program now. From your perspective, what's the best thing that happened to you in tennis, do you think?
Oh man. Well, my freshman year, we came in, and I came into a situation where it was my first year playing, and we had, I think, 7 new players on the team out of 12. And so we got to state finals, and that was just getting to state finals was our goal. I think we finished last at state finals that year. And now, I mean, expectations are just so different in this program. We've gone to states. The boys had never gone to states and gotten to the top 10 before my sophomore year. And now it's been 3 years in a row, and they're only going to get better in the next couple of years. So just expectations are much, much different.
So, Eli, what do you look to for Coach? How does Coach help you during a game?
He helps me figure out what I need to do to keep winning, come back.
How about you, John? What does Coach provide to you?
A lot of things. How to attack my opponent's weaknesses, how to cover sometimes my weaknesses on the day. Definitely keeping me mentally in there if I'm getting a little frustrated, calming me down.
Well, again, it's an individual sport, right, guys?
Yeah.
Except, I mean, and even doubles, it's still an individual sport.
Yeah.
Your partner can't hit the ball for you. You got to hit the ball, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. All right, so Coach, kind of back to you. We left off. You won regionals again, beat a pretty good team in Notre Dame Prep. You're going to the states. How do you prepare for that state tournament?
Well, one of the things that we did this year is we did 3 overnight trips where we traveled to the west side of the state twice, and we really beefed up our schedule. Knowing the kind of team that we had this year, we really pushed these guys. And by the time they got to the state finals, they had seen the best they're going to see. And so it just kind of steadied them for that.
Okay. Eli, would you rather play someone that you've already played before or someone completely new?
Somebody new.
Why?
Just because I don't like playing people because then they already know like how I play.
Okay.
So they play better.
How about you, John? What do you prefer?
I would say people I've already played before, because I think if I already know someone pretty well, I can bring an extra level of intensity and be more aggressive, and I know what to expect out of them, and I know what they will expect out of me, and I can maybe counteract that somehow.
Well, you've talked before about the seeding process and so on that goes in states. Tell us a little about what happened with St. Clair this year and where you guys were going in.
Well, they get seeded into, for their individual flights.
And maybe just explain what seeding is. I know we've talked about it before.
Right. Seeding is basically you want to, in the draws, you want to separate the better players from each other so they don't play each other in the early rounds. Hopefully, if it's done right, the best players will meet at the end of the tournament. And so in order to get seeded, you have to play very good competition and win, and you have to have some good records. And this year we had our second and third singles, John and Troy, that were seeded third in the state. And then they lived up to their seeds. They got to where they were supposed to get to. So, it was very good. We put them in a good position to have a deep run in the state tournament.
So how tough is it, Troy? I mean, do you play multiple games or multiple sets or matches that same day in the States?
Yeah, so most of our season is actually multiple matches in a day.
Oh, really? I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
so a lot of the times we'll play 2 matches during the school week, like Tuesday, Thursday sometimes, and then we'll play a tournament on Saturday, and that is 3 matches, and that goes for almost the entire day. So, yeah, stamina is a big part of high school tennis, and that really gets you ready for state finals because you can play up to 3 matches in a day.
Did you get a little tired by the semifinals, or were you still going on all cylinders, John?
I got the quarterfinals in the round before that, for states are all on Friday. Saturdays, semis, and finals.
I see. Okay.
So I had a night's rest, had
Yep.
a pasta dinner.
Pounding those carbs, right?
Yeah, I was pretty pumped up, had a lot of energy.
Good. So, Coach, tennis, boys tennis anyways, is one of those sports that has kind of a reverse schedule. You start in what is that essentially? You start in summer.
Right.
You end in the not summer.
Right.
And tennis is supposed to be a summer sport outside. So what impact does weather have on the finals?
This year was kind of a very different situation where we had probably the best weather I could remember. We actually had some days where it was too hot, where we probably shouldn't have been playing. But this was the nicest state finals that we've had. It can happen. I think the year before, it was just cold and windy and sort of misty, and it's very hard. Sometimes you're playing the weather as much as your opponent.
Yeah. So what was the final? How did you guys finish this year?
This year we ended up 9th. During the season, we were ranked anywhere from 6th to 10th, and you know what? A match here or there, we could have been top 6.
Okay.
So we did very, very well.
Excellent, excellent. So as I mentioned before, I've got to ask you, what's the latest on the new tennis courts? Everybady's been kind of waiting with bated
Right.
breath to see when that is going to be open.
Well, it's going to be open in the spring.
Okay.
We had a little delay. They started putting in a fence, the wrong fence, and so we had to have them remove it, order the one that we wanted, and so that's what they're doing now. They'll put the fencing is going up as we speak. As a matter of fact, they're actually working on it today.
So the girls will get to use it. Is essentially
Yeah.
what this means.
We were hoping, but the girls will be the first to use it, and they should be putting the painting surface on in the spring.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, guys, again, really appreciate, great job again this year. Coach, as always, congratulations.
Thank you.
9th in the state is an amazing accomplishment, and we'll look forward to having you back next year with an equally good, if not better, finish.
Right. All right.
Thanks, everybody. All right, that's it for this week's Press Box. We'll see you again soon. This is John Carter saying goodbye, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.